Hey everyone, welcome to this special edition of Explicitly Pro-Life. Now, if you happen to notice, I'm not in my office in Pittsburgh, and I'm not at our headquarters in Fredericksburg, Virginia, without air conditioning. By the way, did you know I filmed those episodes without air conditioning the entire time? Yeah, it's a sacrifice. Anyway, I'm out here in Dana Point, California for our Christian Leadership Fellowship. We did practice that class. I just was able to speak to everyone about the history of the pro-life movement. Some of it was the PG-13 version. It can't be released to the public. Also talked about some of the top pro-life activist tips. And I think that should be a good podcast. Did you guys like all the tips? I should make that podcast episode. Anyway, so I can't film an episode of Explicitly Pro-Life this week. So what we're doing instead is I gave a speech this Friday at Young Americans Foundation on preparing for a post for America. And it's pretty good, if I don't say so myself. I actually enjoyed it. I usually don't like to watch speeches I've given, but I actually enjoyed it. The Q&A was really fascinating because despite being a conservative conference of hundreds of students, there was actually one student, the first student to get up, who was pro-choice. And so I had a lot of fun rebutting to him. And it was actually interesting. What you don't see in the film is after my kind of pithy comments back, he came up and said he's going to join the Students for Life group at school. So it actually was a big success. So anyway, I hope you'll enjoy this very special speech I just gave on preparing for a post-Roe America. As you know, this is something we have to talk about, and this is something we have to do because the end of Roe is near and it's coming. And this is our job, to show America that we love her more, that we care more, and that we are ready for this fight. Because guess what? We're the pro-life generation. And not only that, we're the post-Roe generation. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to hit subscribe. All right, good morning. I hope the people I met in the elevator are here. They said, do you work in DC? I'm like, I'm speaking. Get in the room. I'm coming. I want to thank Heidi for introducing me. Yes, her campus was a lot of fun. Heidi went to a Christian university that was giving internship credits to students who are volunteering their time at Planned Parenthood. I had the lovely privilege of having a bunch of protesters in the room shoving their birth control pills in my face for an hour and a half. It was a lot of fun. I actually enjoy it, so it wasn't a big deal. So this morning, I am like your first speaker, right? We're getting the morning started. I was thinking about, in my hotel room last night, how I got started in the conservative movement, what brought me to Washington, D.C. 15 years ago. And I kind of trace it all back to one thing, and that thing is abortion. I remember the day I was kind of told what abortion was. I think my mom had tried to kind of nicely explain it when I was a little kid, but I remember the day really clearly, like when I fully got it, what happens during an abortion procedure. That a unique human being with new genetic code, who is distinct from his mother, who is whole, who is living, is literally torn apart, is burned alive, has a heart attack induced. I remember that day. I was 15. Do you all remember the day you really got it? That you really understood what abortion was? That you're actually told and something clicked inside of you? Like, that's wrong. That's injustice. I remember that. I had volunteered at a pregnancy resource center. A woman at my church had asked me to come volunteer for the summer, and like most things in my life, I do them without thinking. I jump head first in, and then I think about it later. And I was like, sure, I love women. I want to work at a pregnancy center. It sounds great to me. I didn't realize it was a pro-life pregnancy center, that women were going to be coming into the center, trying to decide life or death for the child, trying to figure out how they could do it all, how they could be a mom and finish school, how they could be a mom and continue their career. I remember that first day at the center so clearly because the women at the center, The older women who were like 3 decades older than me were like so excited I was there because I was the same age. At 15, I was the same age as most of the clients. And in some cases, I was actually younger. In some cases, I was actually older than the clients coming in. And they put me in this little room. They said, we want you to talk to these girls about abortion, but first, you have to understand abortion. Have you had that moment yet? That moment where you really understand abortion? Because if you have, let me tell you what you're probably going to experience. Anger. I remember leaving the pregnancy clinic that day. I had a plan for my life. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer. I had won a scholarship to Advanced Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama. I have 1 college credit in space theory. It's an actual thing. My school actually honored it. I had a plan for my life. My boyfriend at the time, now my husband, thought, I was going to be his sugar mama because I was going to be an engineer. I'm still the sugar mama, but it's not that good. These are things my staff says I'm not allowed to say in public. I'm sorry. But I remember that first day. I had this plan for my life, and I learned about abortion, and I was mad. I was angry. Angry at those who choose abortion, who pay somebody else to commit an act of violence against someone weaker than themselves. I was angry at those who accept that money, who prey on her moment of crisis, of vulnerability, who literally put their kids through college, who buy their cars, who buy their homes off of money they've collected from destroying human beings. I remember being angry at the adults in my life, good Christian people who never really told me what abortion was. Because here, this is happening every day, at a time. It was 3,000 times a day. Abortion was happening behind the closed doors of the Planned Parenthood, behind the closed doors of the independent abortion facility. Yet I went to church every Sunday. I went to church on Sunday, Sunday night, Wednesday, and Saturday, most cases. Yet we never talked about it. How is this injustice happening and I didn't even know about it? I was angry. And I have to admit, it was this anger that actually drove me into the conservative movement. Like most people who get involved in politics, they're angry about something. They find an injustice that's happening, and they want to do something about it. And they realize they can make an impact, that you and I can actually make an impact by voting, by working for candidates, by passing laws, lobbying. So I got involved in politics. I started watching Fox News. The time Bill O'Reilly had just started up. I was like Miss No Spin Zone. I had like all the books. All the Ann Coulter books, the Sean Hannity books, the Bill O'Reilly books. I was probably a pretty annoying person to hang out with that first year. I remember getting involved saying, this is an injustice that's happening. Not only do I have to be here for her at this moment of crisis, these final few moments where she's trying to decide, but I have to stop this. We have to pass laws. We have to pass laws to stop this injustice from happening. But men and women, it was interesting when I joined the conservative movement, the political crew. My family thought I was all crazy. They were all Democrat. They're all now Republican. Don't worry. I've converted them all. But I remember joining this movement. And I joined it because I was angry about abortion. And we still, as conservatives, have righteous anger about abortion, and we should never lose that. If you lose that feeling of righteous anger about abortion, you've lost what abortion really is. You've forgotten. But I found something different. I found that we didn't fight against abortion as conservatives. We don't fight against abortion because we're a bunch of old white men who want to keep women barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. That's actually not why we do it. MSNBC has a different view on that. I personally enjoy being barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. I'm trying to convince my husband to let me be barefoot and pregnant again, but it's not working. I personally enjoy that, but that's not what we're about. We're not saying women don't have equal rights, women shouldn't have equal pay, women shouldn't have equal opportunity to achieve their career goals, their education goals. That's not what we're about. No, what I learned by joining the conservative movement is that we actually care more. That we know abortion is a moral wrong because we understand science. We understand that at the moment of conception, a unique, whole, living human being has been created that has never existed before and will never exist again. We're not afraid of the reality of the violence of abortion, right? To talk about it and to actually find out what's going on behind the closed doors of the Planned Parenthood, because many people are actually afraid to kind of find out the truth. We're not afraid to find out the truth. But what I also found out is we care. Because we know the reality of abortion, because we know this truth, because we're not afraid to find the truth, we know we just can't ship her off to the abortionist who's going to profit off of her despair. We can't tell her to simply go and pay somebody $450 and her problem will be erased. We know that's not the case. That no matter what she pays to have done to her and to her child, that seeking that abortion isn't going to solve her problems. It's actually only going to create new ones. I found within the conservative movement that because we understand this, we have to show her that we love her more and that we care for her more and that there's a better plan for her and her child, that we have a better hope for her future, for her family's future. And that's what we do as conservatives, is it not? We're the ones who found pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes, private charities within our communities to serve women in crisis, to be on the front lines. We're the ones who advocate for legislative changes, for policy changes, to give families every advantage, property tax breaks, income tax breaks, increased child tax credits, so families actually can afford to have children. So no woman ever feels like she has to choose between feeding her 2-year-old and having her child. We are the ones who fight for school choice, so children can actually have a chance in life to receive the best possible education, to rise above whatever circumstances they may have been born into. We're the ones advocating for all of these social goods. And we have to be, because we understand the reality of abortion, and we can't be lazy. We can't just tell her to go to the Planned Parenthood down the street or to the abortionist. We have to give her real solutions. And we really care. It's this care that led me to launch Students for Life 13 years ago. Our mission was very simple at Students for Life. It's to go on the offensive on high school and college campuses, right where the abortion industry targets, right where they trap young people into their predatory business cycle, and to tell people the truth, to tell people our own age the truth about abortion, and to be there to witness and love, to show that we care more, that there's a better way. Because we understand that abortion is never women's empowerment. It's the opposite of empowerment. I mean, think about the message you hear all the time on MSNBC and CNN. Think about what you're hearing in the 2020 presidential debates. That women have to have abortion. That Roe v. Wade and Doe versus Bolton, the 2 Supreme Court decisions which legalized abortion all 9 months for whatever reason back in 1973, that somehow Roe versus Wade is tied to women's equality. And that if Roe goes away, women somehow aren't equal. Think about that message that you're hearing. Because this is what the left is saying. What the left is saying is women are only equal unless they have access to a taxpayer-funded special surgery. Women are only equal unless they have access to taxpayer-funded hormonal drugs that they have to ingest for 20 to 30 years that we know are carcinogens. That's the only way we're equal. No, as conservatives, we understand that women are equal to men simply because we were human beings. We are all human beings created by someone. Created by someone. That's what makes us equal. We understand that. So we launch Students for Life to be able to tell these simple truths on high school and college campuses, to be unafraid to have the conversation and to mobilize. Because we know in the history of our world, no social movement has ever won without young people. Young people are the culture drivers. You are the cultural drivers. You are the ones who drive change. It's really you. Hollywood markets to you. Despite what politicians say, they actually are courting you. We have to mobilize this generation to be unafraid to find the truth for themselves and to then speak that truth and to then show that love. And the good news is that it's working. We are the pro-life generation. Polls now consistently show that our generation is actually more conservative than our parents' generation when it comes to the issue of abortion. Because we understand science. We've seen our brothers and sisters in the womb via ultrasound. We know those antiquated talking points in the 1970s of it's just a meaningless blob of tissue. We know those are just lies. We actually are the pro-life generation. Momentum is on our side. More than 300 pro-life laws were introduced this spring session in states across the country. We right now are living in midst of the most pro-life president our nation has ever had. Something's changed. The momentum is here. And for the first time, actually, this week, I found myself agreeing with the president of Planned Parenthood. Everything's possible in Washington, D.C. I found myself, she was on CBS doing her first interview. I found myself agreeing with her, shaking my head, because she said, you know what? We're concerned Roe v. Wade is crumbling. I could not agree with her more. Roe versus Wade is crumbling. It's finished. But just because I now agree with the Planned Parenthood president on something, just because we know Roe versus Wade is crumbling, we can't chill. We actually have to fight harder, because as a pro-life movement, we know reversing Roe means bringing the decision of abortion back to the states, where states will get to choose their abortion policies. So that's only actually phase one of our plan in the pro-life movement. We are planning a big party for the reversal of Roe. But the day after the party, the real work begins. That's why we had to launch Students for Life, because we spent all this time in Washington, D.C. Roe will be reversed, but what are we going to do the day after Roe? Day one. Because day after Roe, we will have 50 statewide battles, 50 legislative battles for abortion in our country. Day one after Roe, there are going to be states that immediately make abortion illegal. That means the day after Roe, there are going to be women across the country searching for another way. We have to be there. It's only phase one of our plan. But yet it's coming to fruition. It's happening. But you're kidding yourselves if you think it's going to happen easily. Or Roe is going to reverse and everyone's just going to sit down and chill out. That's not going to happen. You're seeing it on your campuses, right? Ever since President Trump has been sworn into office, I know our organization has seen a dramatic rise in violent incidents against pro-life free speech. Our displays get destroyed. Our pink crosses get stomped on. Cars run over them. We've actually filed more free speech suppression lawsuits since President Trump has been president than the entire decade than before. You're seeing it, right? We had the executive order. It got so bad this year that the president actually had signed an executive order protecting our free speech on campuses. Do you all remember what happened when Judge Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court? Do you all remember that? The women who were clawing at the Supreme Court doors? It was crazy. But that's nothing compared to what's coming. And you have to be ready. Because when Roe falls, there will be a battle. It's the battle for the soul of our country, soul of our nation. Do we destroy? Do we tear apart? Do we kill the innocent, or do we not? And you have to start preparing now. You have to prepare now. Right now, in August of 2019, for the post-Roe America. You have to be ready. Have you even thought about post-Roe America? I think about it all the time. What is it going to look like? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do right now, tomorrow, Sunday, when you get back to your homes, when you get back to your campuses, when you get back to your communities? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to change? How are you going to prepare for this post-Roe America, where we're really going to have to show America that we do care more? The first thing I want you to think about, this is super easy. Doesn't cost you like any money yet. Doesn't cost you a lot, but this is mental. First thing you have to do is you need to mentally commit. You have to commit right now to get off of the sidelines. Get off of the sidelines. How many of you ever read Letter from Birmingham Jail from Martin Luther King? Y'all should read it. It should be mandatory reading in every school. Okay. In Letter from Birmingham Jail, there's a couple of paragraphs, and something that really spoke to me even when I was 17 years old reading it. Martin Luther King wrote, "I have reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." Is that not what we hear so often when we talk about abortion? Don't talk about it. It's not polite. Don't bring up abortion at the dinner table. Don't talk about it. Why? Because we want to live in darkness. Because when you understand the light, when you truly reach that day where you really understand what abortion is, you'll know you have to fight. Darkness only lives in darkness. Light always defeats the darkness. You have to commit to get off of the sidelines, to take a stand, to say, I am not going to live in a negative peace. I seek a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, which means abortion is illegal and it's unthinkable in our nation. You have to make that commitment. No, I lied. I told you it wasn't hard. It is hard, sorry. The second thing you have to do after you commit to understand that you can't just be in the middle on this, that some things are always wrong, and abortion is one of those. The second thing you have to do after you commit is you have to start talking about abortion. And there's graduating degrees of, how you get started. The first thing you do is, you like Students for Life, you like live action. Then you get the courage and you share something. Then maybe you'll do a bumper sticker. It's graduating degrees. Then maybe you'll wear a t-shirt like Defund Planned Parenthood. I wear it all the time. It's hilarious, especially in the DC airport. There's degrees of it. I know you gotta work your way up it, but you have to commit. Once you've committed to getting off the sidelines, once you've committed to being the light, to make the darkness flee, you actually have to do it. And that starts with just talking about it. Be that annoying person. When people look at you, you're like, oh boy, here they come. They're gonna talk about this. I mean, you're conservatives, you're used to it, right? I had the pro-life mobile in college. I had like the Bush Cheney sticker on the back of my car, then the pro-life sticker, and my college dorm window, I had like the Bush Cheney sign. Like everybody knew what was going on in my dorm room. Be that person. Be unafraid to talk about abortion. Because you have to. Because if you understand what abortion is, if you truly get it, how can you be silent about the injustice? How can you be silent? The next thing, the final thing, once you commit, once you start talking, then you have to walk the walk. The third thing is put your money where your mouth is, to actually get active, to become an activist. You're here, that word shouldn't scare you too much, but I know it scares some people. Activist. There's a place for you in the pro-life movement. Every single one of you can find a place in the pro-life movement. At Students for Life, we have something called the 5 pillars. And we ask every Students for Life group to be involved in these pillars. That way, there's a place for everyone. Not all of you are going to be rapid responders. I'm a rapid responder. There's a protest, I'm there. There's a Supreme Court decision, I'm there with a bullhorn. I always want to be out front, changing the media narrative, so when the Washington Times comes to take a picture, they take a picture of young, pro-life, energetic leaders to show the country that we are the pro-life movement, not who they say they are. But you don't have to do that. I know, getting, standing up, having people scream at you, maybe spit at you. I had like old people hit me with signs. I mean, I have a lot of funny stories. That may not be something everyone wants to do. That's okay. Get involved with supportive services, our second pillar at Students for Life. Find out what resources are actually available on your campus right now for women in crisis who are pregnant or parenting. What we're finding at Students for Life, even though we have Title IX that's actually supposed to make it illegal to discriminate against pregnant and parenting students, they're discriminated against all the time. And guess who is the ones talking about it? You won't ever find the feminist group or the pro-choice group on campus caring about supporting pregnant and parenting students. In fact, we hold forums and we invite the pro-abortion group, the feminist majority group, to join us. And this is something that should be bipartisan. And guess who never shows up? The feminist group. Find out what resources are available on your campus to pregnant and parenting women and what resources aren't available. And fight for those resources. Things like diaper changing stations in the bathroom, parking, close parking near academic buildings for pregnant women, housing. Does your school kick her out the moment she becomes pregnant? What can you do? At Students for Life, we had 3 huge policy changes that happened on college campuses this year alone. We want to help you change policies on your college campus to make sure no woman ever again feels like she has to choose between the life of her child and her education. She should never have to feel like she has to make this false choice. We can help you do that. Our program that we use is called Pregnant on Campus. We can help you create something different, something unique to your school. Get out there. Industry impact. Tomorrow is National Pro-Life Generation Sidewalk Day. Tomorrow's the day we're asking this generation to go to the sidewalks and to stand there and to speak to her before she enters the abortion facility, to tell her, we love you, there's a better way, and I'm willing to walk with you. out if Planned Parenthood is in your school. Is Planned Parenthood in your campus health center? If you're in high school, are they teaching your sex ed? Is your school giving, like Heidi's school, internship credits to Planned Parenthood? Find out. I want to help you kick them out of your school. Effective education. Our third pillar, actually our fourth pillar, Students for Life. Bring a pro-life speaker to your campus. I mean, this is what YAF does. I'm a YAF speaker. Bring a provocative pro-life speaker to campus. Everyone loves my speech title, Lies Feminists Tell. It gets everyone talking. Bring a pro-life speaker to campus. Have a pro-life debate. Start a Students for Life group. Keep talking about abortion. Keep the dialogue going. The final pillar, public policy, sign up at that table out there for our Students for Life action. You know, I talked about how extreme and unhinged they're kind of becoming. They've become really unhinged in state capitals. This year, New York State passed a law that allows abortion even after birth. It's called an infanticide. Despite the fact that 2 months ago they outlawed the declawing of cats because they said taking out the claws of cats is inhumane. Yet, 3 months earlier, they said if a baby is born alive in an abortion facility, the abortionist is not legally required to give the child life-sustaining oxygen. So in Virginia's having an election this coming year. Virginia is going to be a ground game. There was legislators who tried to pull in New York and Virginia. Get involved with us. We're going door to door. We're making phone calls. We're going to show this generation, this nation, that we're unafraid to talk about this issue. So there's so many things you can get involved. And if you still don't know how to get involved, you can text me. You can text LIFE to 53445. You can get, give you my email, my personal email. It goes actually to my phone. I'll send you a bumper sticker. I'll answer your questions. It's LIFE 53445. Men and women, the writing is on the wall for Roe versus Wade. It is crumbling. But I need you. I'm here today. I flew in today to ask for your help because I need you to join us in this movement. I need you to join us in this battle, the world's greatest human rights battle. I need your voice. I need your activism. I need you to help us cast a vision for a post-Roe America. I need you to help women in your community, women on your campus. I need you to help us change the national narrative so that everyone knows that we conservatives, we care more, we love more, and we're not afraid to talk about the hard issues. We're not afraid to tackle the tough topics because we're ready for the fight. We know we're the light. We know we're called to chase the darkness out of the room, to make the darkness flee our nation. And we're not going to give up. That we're not going to give up. Not until every single woman in this country knows that there's a better plan, that there's a better way, that there are people who will love her and support her. And we're not going to give up until every child, no matter their genetic makeup, no matter the income level of their parents, no matter the race of their parents, no matter their gender, we're there for them. That every single child is welcomed in life and law. Thank you. There's questions and answers now. Question? Who's going first? There's two of you.
Ladies first.
Ladies first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
What a good conservative.
My name is Rachel Schultz, and I founded a Students for Life club at the College of Lake County in Grace Lake, Illinois.
Nice.
We had two teachers with their theater class come over. You guys may have seen this video on the Students for Life website. They were yelling at David Cordero, who is the regional coordinator for Illinois, and he was with us. And so they said, "You know why you're here? Because Christianity is evangelical." And I said, "You know why I'm here? Because I'm Native American, and we were pro-life before there was abortion in the United States."
Love it.
And so I wanted to ask Lila Rose this question, but I didn't get a chance to. She mentioned ectopic pregnancy, and that there are, she wishes that there was medical technology to transplant like the baby in the womb.
That's right.
I actually found a medical paper dating from the early 1900s where a doctor successfully transplanted an ectopic pregnancy into the mother's womb because the parents were trying to have children and they really wanted to keep the baby. So, and the baby was successfully grew inside the womb. It was like a C-section, and then he sewed her up again. And the baby was born full term. And I believe it was a natural birth, too. So I just wondered, why hasn't this been followed up? It
has been tried. I have a doctor friend who lives in Berkeley, California. She's was the head of the National Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs. They've tried it. I haven't seen that article. To my knowledge, that's never been in existence. That there's been stories on Facebook, but there's actually never been a medical journal article saying like this is how we do it. I know there are pro-life doctors who try it. I found it
when I was doing research for an English paper. It was about eugenics, and I found it on the National Right to Life website.
Okay.
So
yeah, no, I mean, to my knowledge, they haven't figured out how to do it. I have a friend who's tried and attempted to do it several times, but they haven't had any successful implantation of the embryo into the mother's uterus.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Courage. I go to the University of Michigan. I'm going to say something that's a little taboo for a conference like this, but I am pro-choice. Given that, do you believe that the pro-choice stance is necessarily pro-abortion? And if abortion is made illegal, how will the government and then go about enforcing laws to control drugs like the abortion pill? Simply due to the demand of, high abortion demand post Roe v. Wade.
Sure. Well, thank you for having the courage to say that.
Okay.
I have a question for you, though. Can you be pro-choice on slavery?
I don't think those two compare.
Why? Why is it different?
It's much easier to enforce the slavery solution that they.
But slavery still exists. We have the 13th Amendment today, but slavery still exists within our country today. Human trafficking happens every day.
What I'm saying is the fetus, the baby is inside. I disapprove of abortion completely. However, I don't believe that government is the solution to this problem simply because the high demand after Roe v.
Sure,
Wade.
and I'll be happy.
There have been illegal abortions before Roe v. Wade.
And there'll be illegal abortions after it's illegal.
That happened at a much lower level because the culture was different. If you got a girl pregnant, you were expected to marry her. I think the solution to the abortion problem is social movements like Students for Life and YAF and other organizations. Like you had said that this generation is more pro-life than the previous. Do you think that's because of laws that are being put by
I think
the books?
it's and/or. So there's a lot here, and I'm actually really glad you asked this question,
All right.
because I'm probably not going to get to the other questions, because I've got a lot to unpack. It's and/or. Culture changes laws, and laws change culture. I don't actually believe you can be pro-choice on abortion, because if you know abortion is the taking of an innocent human life, that's always wrong. And you can't ever say, well, it's okay for you to kill babies, but it's not okay for me. It's the very same, and it's the very same as slavery. When people say, you can't say that. Why? Because we all recognize that an African American, that someone's skin color who might be different than mine, is still a unique, whole, living person deserving of rights, right? You can't be pro-choice on slavery. Enslaving another human being is always wrong, just like how killing another innocent human being is always wrong. And we can go through atrocity after atrocity after atrocity in our world history, and I can point to you to people and say, was it okay to be pro-choice on the Holocaust? No. It was always wrong, and it's the same thing for abortion. The challenge is, we hear this a lot amongst conservatives of, well, I'm pro-choice. I would challenge that you don't really know, sir, what abortion really is, and you don't fully understand what happens inside of those abortion facility doors. Now, talking about illegal abortion, I'm getting there. Talking about illegal abortion. So we get this question all the time in the pro-life movement. Where do we focus our time? Is it changing minds or changing laws? I think it's both, because I do think laws shape opinion. Sadly, a lot of people derive their morality from legality, which in the history of the United States, that's not always a good decision, but that's what happens. When you look at pre-Roe versus Wade polling on abortion, Americans largely rejected abortion. They said, oh, that killed babies. Hell, Planned Parenthood in 1962 said abortion kills babies. But then, once Roe was handed down, opinions started to change. People started changing their minds because 7 men on the Supreme Court suddenly decided it was okay. Then suddenly, it became moral. Yes, abortions happened when abortion was illegal. And yes, abortions will happen even when we make it illegal in a post-Roe versus Wade America. The number of illegal abortions leading up to Roe versus Wade, we think were about 10,000 illegal abortions happening a year. Some estimates are higher, but it's actually very low. The number of abortions shot up once Roe versus Wade came down from the Supreme Court. Will women die? Didn't women die when abortion is legal? I've heard this argument from pro-choice people of, I don't want women to die from back alley abortions. Therefore, I don't like abortion, but I think it should be legal. Women did die before Roe versus Wade of illegal abortions. But guess what? Women die today from legal abortions inside the Planned Parenthoods. The numbers you hear, often people saying tens of thousands of women were dying from illegal back-alley abortions, that's actually not true. In 1959, Mary Calderon, the medical director of Planned Parenthood, stood before a conference of her peers and said that 90% of physicians, people who were committing abortions, 90% of them were physicians in good standing. She actually testified that the invention of penicillin dramatically lowered the pre-Roe versus Wade death rates, because what happens from illegal abortions is women were dying of sepsis because a limb, part of the placenta, was still being left inside of her because they weren't using ultrasound-guided technology. And penicillin stopped the infection from taking place. It actually dramatically lowered the amount of deaths pre-Roe versus Wade from abortions. We know from Planned Parenthood's own award-winning statisticians, we know from the CDC that the number of deaths every year from illegal abortions in the 1970s, 1970, 1973, were under 100 women dying a year. And that was from illegal and legal abortions, because several states had legalized abortion. Christopher Tietz, Planned Parenthood's own statistician in 1965, said there was probably about 500 women dying a year from illegal abortions. Just because this tragedy unfolds and women feel, and this is why I talked about, why we have to show women we love them and we care for them more, because, our work in the pro-life movement doesn't end once abortion's illegal. Our work in the pro-life movement ends when abortion becomes unthinkable, when it becomes obsolete, because I'm anti-abortion. So it doesn't matter if abortion is legal or illegal. I'm still called to fight against it, to speak out against it, because I understand the injustice of what unfolds. But just because something is dangerous doesn't mean it should be legal. Just because something is dangerous doesn't mean it should be legal. Like you think about bank robbery. I get asked this question all the time. Women are gonna die, therefore it should be legal. Well, babies are dying every day, and it's legal. Bank robbery is a very dangerous occupation for someone to take up. But we don't legalize bank robbery because bank robbers have a high mortality rate. So I answered a lot of questions in that one thing. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question.
I appreciate your energy.
sorry.
Thank you. I will support any social pro-life movement.
Great.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katrina Fee, and I'm from the Catholic University here in DC. Thank you, first off, for coming to speak to us and for all you've done for the pro-life movement, especially for us on college campuses. And my question is regarding how I've been told by my leftist peers how if a child would be born into poverty and a life that would be difficult, it would be better off for them to never have been born. So for someone to say that someone doesn't have a life, like their life isn't worth living because they're poor, is it even worth talking to them, and how should I talk to them?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot. Sadly, in our society, and this is a really big theological thing that I'm going to say, but we have deemed suffering as a moral wrong. That because you suffer, therefore it's a moral wrong, it's better to kill somebody. Suffering isn't a moral wrong. Actually, a lot of people grow because of suffering. Some of the best times in my life have come because of a moment of suffering, of a moment of desperation, when I felt at my lowest, right? And all of us can probably point to circumstances in our life. But we've kind of gotten messed up because we've started saying suffering is a wrong, therefore it's always better to eliminate any possible suffering. And I think that's a really crazy way to look at it, because when you get that argument from, well, if a child's gonna be born into poverty, therefore we should just kill it. They're gonna suffer. Well, you're gonna suffer in your life, should I just kill you? No one would ever make that argument. But we hear it all the time. I have 2 children with cystic fibrosis. 90% of children diagnosed in the womb with cystic fibrosis are aborted. Why? They're going to suffer. My children, Gunnar and Gracie, are going to live a very hard life. And our family lives a very hard life. But their life still has value. You guys are so much more fun than college campus. I'm just going until somebody cuts me off, yeah, by the way. Keep going.
I'm Nate. I'm from the University of Michigan. I'm sure you're familiar with the group Democrats for Life.
Yes.
And they advertise that there's over 21 million Democrats that support the pro-life movement. I was just wondering what your interactions with them
Sure.
have been and how we can come together in bipartisanship to push that forward.
Yeah, we actually were in Detroit this week with Democrats for Life at an event. We were there speaking. So we have worked with Democrats for Life in the past. I think it's actually, they're the golden ticket to 2020. Because what you saw with New York State, what you saw with Illinois and Virginia, all the extremist pro-abortion legislation, what the Democrats in their rush to get all the money from Planned Parenthood, what they're forgetting is 1/3 of Democrats are against abortion. 1/3. And so one of the things we're gonna actually be doing with Students for Life Action door knocking is we're actually gonna be knocking on Democrats' doors to say, do you know this is how extreme your party is? Because when we do polling, Students for Life released polling just January, found that only 7% of millennials agree with the DNC's platform of abortion all 9 months for whatever reason, taxpayer funded. What's happened is the Democratic Party has become beholden to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood started getting more federal money. They started growing their PACs, their 527s. Now Planned Parenthood is now one of the biggest lobbyists, one of the biggest political forces in Washington, D.C. So they're all rushing to buddy up to Planned Parenthood. But the challenge is they've left people behind, like my entire family in West Virginia behind. They've left all these people behind. So I actually think there's a lot we can do with Democrats for Life. I would caution, though, and I've seen this before with bipartisan things, we need to be very clear. Government-run healthcare, socialized healthcare is not pro-life. Because in socialized healthcare, people always die because the government decides who is worthy of care and who is not worthy of care. And so that's a big point of contradiction I have with some people who say I'm a Democrat for life and I'm for Obamacare and I'm for ACA. As a mother of 2 children with very expensive diseases, my son just got prescribed a drug yesterday that's cost $400,000 a year. There's only 70,000 people in North America and South America and Australia that actually have cystic fibrosis, in Europe. Only 70,000. Guess who doesn't get those drugs? In the UK, just this year, 80,000 doses of that drug that Gunnar needs that has been proven to extend his life, that scientists think that can extend his life for a decade. It actually expired on the shelves because the National Health Service in the UK refuses to pay the prices for the drugs, even after they've been negotiating in good faith to lower the costs. Because to them, people with cystic fibrosis don't really matter. So, just a caution.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Courtney. I go to Butler University in Indiana. You mentioned that people believe that women's rights are connected to Roe v. Wade, and I was just wondering how you suggest we go about convincing that that's not the case.
Well, one, you can start with the first feminists, right? Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Alice Paul, the actual original author of the ERA, were all pro-life. They all openly expressed pro-life sentiments. It actually wasn't until 2 men who founded NARAL Pro-Choice America. By the way, I keep saying men because suddenly, gender always matters now. It was 2 men that founded NARAL Pro-Choice America who went to Betty Friedan and convinced her in the 2nd edition of Feminist Mystique to insert abortion. It was 2 men that altered the second wave of women's rights of the feminist movement, convinced her that abortion was integral to it. So I always start off by talking about the original feminists, right? What the first wave suffragists believed. I always talk about stories when I'm talking to somebody about abortion. I've met so many women who thought abortion was her only option. But what she found is when she left the abortion facility, the poverty she was living in, the abusive relationship she was in, the crisis she was in didn't actually go away. The abortion, in some cases, only prolonged the crisis, prolonged the abuse. We as pro-lifers, we as anti-abortion activists, we're the ones for full women's equality. Because guess who's the ones being aborted in India and China? It ain't the men, it's women. We're being aborted in epic numbers simply because of our DNA. We're the ones, we, the pro-life movement, we're the ones who come alongside her and say, you can do this. It may be hard, it may be difficult, but you are actually strong enough to rise above this. That you can actually make this work. Planned Parenthood's message to her is no, you can't. Our message is yes, you can. Thank you.